No, just this one, as far as I know. All right, ready? All right, let's call our meeting to order. It is 7 o'clock on Wednesday, November 12th, 2025. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mark Vance.
Here.
Dan Cheek.
Here.
Christy Richardson.
Here.
Roxanne Sanowski.
Here.
David Allgood.
Here.
Sine Hubbard.
Here.
David Howe.
Let's all stand for Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We have no phone participation this evening. Do we have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Motion. Second.
Motion by Sine, second by Mark, I heard.
I think it was Dan, but
Dan?
that's okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, tonight's agenda is approved. Do we have a motion to approve Board of Trustee meeting minutes from October 8th, 2025?
Move to approve minutes, Board of Trustees from October 8th, 2025.
Motion by Dan,
Second.
second by Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Meeting minutes from October 8th, 2025 passes. Any public comment? Okay. All right. Motion to discuss Lions Park agreement.
Motion to discuss Lions Park agreement.
Second.
Motion by Mark, second by Dan. Okay. Roxanne, would you
Yep,
lead off, please?
I can kick this off. So as the board is aware, I did send out a updated proposed agreement for the board's consideration. There was also a request by the board to obtain some additional information from the Lions Club. It was requested that we receive copies, or the village receive copies of the rental application and the fees associated with that. So to rent the different park facilities or park amenities. And then it was also requested that the rental agreement be obtained as well. So both of those documents are in the packet for today. Again, the proposed agreement with the revisions that were talked about at the last board meeting has not been forwarded to the Lions Club yet. I think that it was, my understanding that the board wanted to take a look at these two documents. What I would suggest at this point is, unless there's material from these two documents that you want to include in the overall partnership agreement with the Lions Club, perhaps at this point it might make some sense to schedule a meeting between members of the Lions Club and a representative or two from the Poplar Grove Village Board to see if we can start to discuss the agreement terms and kind of putting a finishing touch on this.
What do you think is left to put on it, Roxanne? Just curious.
The agreement, in my view, is is complete and ready to go. Whether or not it will, meet the support of the Lions Club, I'm not sure. But I know that some of the concerns that were expressed in the past were, the ability to book only a certain number of events, and we've since changed that language since the board gave further direction on that certainly was not the intention. So I think it's in as good of a version as it could be, but again, open to whatever direction the board would like to give on how you'd like to proceed.
I guess the only question I really got on the rental agreement, like the pavilions and stuff like that, we're gonna have to amend our ordinance, correct? If it doesn't really stipulate how we're gonna approach that, who's collecting.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You would need to, adopt this or some form of this agreement as the, agreement that anyone would use for purposes of, use of the facilities.
Why don't we found that rental ordinance that nobody had been following,
Mm-hmm.
didn't even know about, so
Right.
we have to touch that up before we move any further with this aspect of it,
Well,
correct?
no,
Well,
what
I
I
mean,
would
we can discuss
suggest
with them,
is sitting down and discussing a partnership agreement with the Lions Club, making sure that everything is ironed out, and then going and making any amendments to ordinances that may need to take place in order to make sure that everything is then in alignment.
Roxanne, the last time there was a desire to add some sort of maintenance fee, has that such been added at this point?
I have not,
Okay.
no.
And I think Sinead, that was where your concern was, and
I
I didn't
don't-
know if,
I don't think we agreed on that. It was, so Roxanne, I know we talked about the use of the land in the park, and then in exchange, maybe doing some sort of fee exchange agreement there with the placement of the partnership. But I don't think everybody on the board was in consensus with that, and we definitely did not come up with an amount.
Yeah, right now, the way that the agreement reads is that the Lions Club would provide to the village an annual accounting of all revenue generated from the park, and paid to the Lions Club, including funds received for registration of athletic teams, and then an annual accounting of expenses. But there is no provision in the agreement that any of those fees would at any time, end up with the village. There is a inclusion in the agreement that there would be an establishment of fees, and that the village would adopt a fee schedule by village ordinance, and that those would then be the fees that the Lions Club would then charge. In early iterations of the agreement, it indicated that fees for use of the premises would be collected by the Village of Poplar Grove village clerk and turned over to the village treasurer. But you could certainly amend that to indicate that the village will set the fees. Those will be charged by the Lions Club, but then would go back into the programming, if that's what you wanted to do.
There were a few other follow-ups that we talked about also, like software, right? Didn't we discuss?
We did.
Scheduling.
Yeah, scheduling and
Calendar.
what would be best for, both groups to be able to use. Did is Attorney David Kurlinkus, right? Who was here
Yep.
last time?
Yep.
Did he make those updates that we asked for to the agreement also?
I believe so.
'Cause we did
If
make
I'm,
some. If you could just send that out, even if it's after this. I don't know that we're ready to make any additional or even meet yet until we have some of those other things vetted out, because I think Carrie was also going to look at. She said there were some capabilities in
Municode?
yes.
Yep.
Or yeah,
Yeah, something
is
like
that what it was?
Yeah.
Or BSNA, something
I
like
believe there
that.
are modules for it.
Yep.
so the way that the agreement reads now, the most up-to-date version in my files states that the Lions Club would have first choice for scheduling all of its own activities every year annually. So not one activity a month or anything like that, but that they would have first choice. And that the village would advise the Lions Club of the appropriate process for reserving park space. After the village received the Lions Club's scheduled activities, then the village would be responsible for maintaining the schedule of available dates for other individuals and groups. I think that that was the direction that Dave thought was given at the last meeting. And so that's the updated draft that we have.
That sounds pretty accurate.
Agreed. If you don't mind sending
Yeah,
that to
I
us,
can
and
absolutely
then-
send it out.
Then we'll have
Yep.
to follow up with Carrie on what she got from the scheduling, but I think that's as far as we can probably take it tonight.
Any other
Yeah,
questions?
then you had mentioned something about teams too, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. My only one thought is that if we're going to schedule for example, another athletic group to use the field and that requires prepping the fields, how do we handle that? So it's just some food for thought. We don't have to answer it right now, but like it's different if it's a pavilion rental versus space. Like who goes and then sets that field? Because right now, the club does that when it receives another athletic team who wants to come use a field, or if it's for kickball and they want bases and lines, they drag the fields and that kind of stuff. So I just think that that's also food for thought on how you want that handled. Any other
I mean, I know the takeaways from the last board meeting also were contact the Lions Club and get copies of the rental agreement and the fee schedule. So we've done that. That was sent out by the Lions Club to everyone on the board in preparation, I think, for tonight's meeting. So I'll circulate again the most updated draft of the agreement. But we haven't made any changes to the agreement as it relates to the application or the fee schedule. It's in pretty much the same form, I think, as the board has seen it before. But I'm absolutely happy to send that out. And then maybe for the meeting, it's a quick turnaround, obviously, because of the holiday. So you're meeting next week. So I don't know if there's enough time that the board feels that it has between now and next Wednesday to be in a position to comment about this, or if this is something you want to move to a December meeting agenda.
Do we need to discuss the fee and schedule? I mean, I don't see any issues with this, but again, we don't have everyone here either. I don't know. What are everyone's thoughts on that? Because I don't know.
Is this the model the club's been using
Yeah.
for
Yes.
quite some time?
Yes.
So,
I don't think there's a problem with that.
yeah, I mean, and then when you were talking about responsibilities of the field, if they're still gonna be the ones collecting, then, it's still the ones I would imagine would maintain for that rental purpose.
Well, then it would just have to be spelled out because that's not kind of what the language is. So
Yeah.
that's all, the only reason I brought that up.
Yeah,
Right.
but I understand what you're saying, but if they're still gonna be collecting, if we were collecting, then yeah, then it's.
Do we
it's
want to
on us.
have Roxanne add that to the draft then?
But if they're collecting it, well, the language is just lacking, but other than that, I mean, there's just no clarity on who's collecting.
So I should amend the agreement. Sorry, I just
Well,
want to make sure I understand that. I should amend the agreement to reflect the fact that the Lions Club will collect the reservation fees.
Yeah, either or,
Will
it
not
just
be
doesn't
collected by the,
clarify.
well, it's in paragraph
Oh, did I miss it?
8 of the agreement, and it says Poplar Grove shall be responsible for scheduling and the establishment of fees charged for use of the premises. Poplar Grove shall adopt the fee schedule by village ordinance. Fees will be applied equally to all lake users of the premises. Requests for scheduling shall be made through the office of the Poplar Grove Village Clerk. All fees for use of the premises shall be collected by the Poplar Grove Village Clerk and turned over to the Poplar Grove Village Treasurer. So that's how the agreement, the proposed agreement, the 2025 proposed agreement currently reads.
That kind of throws a wrench in that then.
So, well, I mean, we can change this language, right? We can amend it to be that the fees will be collected by the Poplar Grove Lions Club and that those fees then will be utilized for the maintenance and upkeep of the park property and for the sports programming.
So if you,
It's an easy fix.
if you amend the language like that, does that mean the Lions Club is going to be collecting the fees for non-Lions Club events?
I think
Well,
that's
current-
where we were
yeah,
talking
so-
about delineating.
Yeah, so I mean, so now, like I discussed in the last meeting, what if somebody doesn't want to deal with the Lions Club? They prefer to deal with the village, but now they got to send their check for their fees to the Lions Club. This is a village park, and I think that handing over that kind of control to a third party is an issue for me.
And that's fine. What my concern was though is that if a third party athletics, not just a resident who wants to have a pavilion rental or rent grass or whatever, and that field needs to be prepared, who will do that?
And there again, that's what I was saying. So, I think you're trying to commingle two separate entities, one municipality and one private party, into a situation where nobody can actually put their hand on who is going to absolutely be responsible.
David, if we were, if we, can you answer, if we were to collect as a village and schedule that field, could it be prepared during normal business hours from the Public Works Department?
If we were to collect for,
Let's say power or travel or whatever.
so if we have an individual entity, that's gonna schedule it on Friday, yes, we can do that. Obviously, it's a lot of additional labor to prepare it daily, which would be the requirement for a league or, North Boone Youth Baseball and Softball.
But you're talking about one-offs outside of the schedule that gets set for the year at the beginning of the year. You're talking about anything outside of that, right?
Well, the way that this reads, right, and the way that I understood it was that if it is a non-Lions Club of items, so if it's not the baseball program that's running and that has been scheduled, right, then the village would be responsible for all of the other reservations. So if power or state line or some other athletic baseball program wants to come use the fields that is not related to Lions Club, what I am concerned about is who will take preparations of those fields.
So they don't schedule that, those teams don't schedule with the Lions Club at the beginning of the year for reservations? It's all
So
ad
they-
hoc.
What if it's a family reunion? Why would they schedule that with the Lions Club?
She's talking about sports.
Right, I'm talking about
But
when
I
it- when
guess,
it-
I
other
mean, that's
sports, and
the
no,
point,
they
'cause-
come sometimes and say, hey, we would like to do a scramble, and it could be any time within that season because they have time, and they'll schedule it, and then part of that, and part of the fees on this agreement that you see in the amenities is that the club has been preparing those fields for whatever athletic entity outside of the Lions Club is using the field. We would have to take on that responsibility, which I'm okay with if that's what we want to do. But I think it's an appointment, it's a clarity that needs to be addressed. It's not just a family reunion. It's not just a pavilion rental. Who's going to do that? And that's why I asked David.
We would need some decent notification to work it into the schedule. I mean, if we get a call on a Friday morning that this is going to get rented out at 5 o'clock Friday night, is it doable? Yes. If that's how it goes every week, it's going to be,
I mean, at that
somewhat
point,
difficult.
the club should understand that that's an unreasonable expectation and that they should prep the field as much as they can themselves, I would think.
No, we're talking about non-club related situations.
She's also talking about, I'm not talking about Lions Club, sorry. I'm talking about like travel club.
Right, but they don't have the equipment. So
Then they have to take it as it is, I guess, if they want it at that time. If we don't,
that's typically not how it works. If you're renting out a facility, usually part of that fee schedule is field preparation. So
even if you're calling that morning that you want it that evening,
Typically-
their expectation is that it's done
typically,
pretty.
yes. I mean, I've walked away from games or tournaments because fields weren't prepped as part of the rental. It's a non-prep field is a safety hazard.
I agree. So why would we agree to do it the same day?
Would
And that's
you-
why I say typically you would have better notification than that, and you would ask for that in any kind of an agreement. But the possibility of it happening, I was just pointing out in that situation, if that did happen, it would be more difficult to work that in versus getting, 48 hours notice or a week's notice or, whatever. If I can put it on our books as something to do, then it is manageable and doable. But if it's something that's daily or late notice, that makes that process a little more difficult with everything else that Public Works is responsible for.
Of course, that makes sense.
Well, not to mention your unexpecteds. Water mains break, we know that. Lift stations fail. Sewer gets backed up. I mean, priority's gotta take precedent on any of that. And that'd be the thing. And if they did get fair notice and, the village had for lack of better terms, some sort of catastrophe that needed immediate attention, then where are we at? The field's not prepped, but, we got the residents getting their water back or their sewer back. Something like that, that also a liability as well, if the manpower's, sewer, for instance, that starts backing up, filling up people's basements. It's a big liability. We have, emergencies throughout the year, I would imagine. We don't know about them all, but I mean, I drive by and I see you guys digging a hole, and in a panic, I pretty much figured out something broke. So, I mean, even in that scenario, even with notice, the village is gonna take precedent to get that fixed first.
I will say if we have notice and it's, written into any kind of agreement, and they are paying for it, we are going to have to figure out a way to get that done. I mean,
Yeah, I'm just
that's,
saying if you had a mad dash situation, all hands on deck kind of deal, and,
Yeah.
you'd have to work it into your schedule later on that week or whatnot.
Mark, go ahead.
Kind of going through this process, it gets complicated very quickly. And usually, we are the landowners, right? Like if somebody was going to rent that property or lease that property, they would have their business plan as well. And how they're actually doing business currently, which we know, they've divulged that. I know it's not a popular, decision, but I really kind of wouldn't mind having the Lions Club meet with maybe one or two of our board members to flesh out some of this. Because at this point, we don't know what they're willing, if they're willing to prep the field for that part of the fee, or I don't know what that entails as far as how many hours that would be or how long that would take. And I understand how we would want to maybe control the schedule or control or oversee the income. But at the same time, that's, to me, I'm seeing hours added to our staff. I don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze for that. So I would like to recommend that we use this as a draft and we schedule a date to sit down with leadership, and we pick our team to talk to the Lions Club, and maybe we could flesh some of these items out to have an equitable decision that works for the village and it works for the Lions Club.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we take a step back, and I've said this last time, but the most important part of what we're discussing is to put some kind of agreement in place. So I agree with you, Mark, like, let's flesh it out, but is that the sort of minutia that we need to get to in order to get some sort of agreement in place? Because we need to protect ourselves, we need to protect the taxpayers, we just need to get an agreement in place. So maybe we can make something more generic for now and then get into the minutia of scheduling and fee collections and maintenance. I'm not saying it's minutia, I'm sorry, but like those details, as opposed to, let's get a broad agreement in place, because we do not have one still.
I would like to say I concur with everything that Sine just stated. I just, my fear is we're gonna kick this down the road
I agree
for
with you.
weeks and weeks and weeks, and we're not gonna come up to a conclusion, right? So, I would like to take the, the group that's gonna be the main leaseholder of the property and running the events. They're running the events, they're putting in a lot of the work as well. Let's get their input.
So are we then saying we want a meeting before a draft goes out, or do we want to have a draft to present at said meeting?
Yes, I would like to have the draft presented at the meeting, and we
You
can
don't want to see it first?
both. Well, I mean, we could redline it too as
That's all, like via
as
email.
that
yeah.
meeting's happening. This isn't like a,
Okay.
hey, you guys got to sign today or anything, right? Like just
Absolutely
use
not.
it as a brainstorming, use it as a base, and we can redline it, bring it back to the board, and decide if that's something palatable for the village.
Okay, so I'm hearing that the draft that Roxanne will send is the one that we're potentially ready to have a conversation with the club about. Who would like to represent in that meeting?
I would be happy to represent with us in that meeting. And I think anybody else that feels strongly about how we need to get an agreement.
We can only have two, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
2. Anyone else?
Trustee Alger?
I'm sorry, I'm going to tell you that I'm probably not want to be part of that because I am honestly not in favor of any agreement. For me, I believe that we should have a Parks and Recs department and that we should be assuming responsibility, the fiduciary responsibility of the assets that we own.
And that's great as long as it's in the budget, right? Like as long as we have, like as long as we can plan for that and staff up for that, great. But I'm looking at what the burden has in the village today, and we have we have the park being utilized and money being charged for the park, and we don't have an agreement.
And if the Park and Recreations would almost take a referendum on the ballot, property tax.
Yep, I really think that's not a bad idea, Chairman Allgood, but like, I don't think it's in our scope for the next even 6 months. And I wish that we don't continue any further without an agreement.
Well, I understand, I understand your concern. You're worried about the economics. Some of that economic relief comes from the funding coming to the village instead of the Lions Club. That's a very hard and cold statement. So,
I'll do it. Nobody else wants it. As I've been playing at that park longer than anybody here.
All right, so then for this item, we're going to have a draft sent out to the board, and then we're going to ask Roxanne to reach out to the club to schedule a meeting.
Yes, please.
Will do. Thank you.
And any day works for me except for Tuesdays.
Okay, got it.
Okay, all right, are we
Yep.
ready to move on?
Yep.
All right, great. Do we have a motion to discuss liability insurance for the village of Poplar Grove from IMLRMA and ICRMT?
so moved.
Motion by Dave, second by Sine. All right, we are gonna have presentations. Because what's in the packet first, we're gonna have Eric Little, come from Illinois IMLIRMA. Can we use, David, can we have the mic, please? We don't have an extra mic right now. Thank you.
Get situated here, sorry. So yeah, my name's Eric Little. I'm with the IML Risk Management Association. Chris Cordy had been dealing with the president on this quote. He couldn't be here tonight, so you're lucky enough to have me. So everybody should have one of our proposal books, or did have at one point. So I'm just going to go through it real quick, kind of the highlights of our program, who we are, what we do, the services that we provide, that kind of thing. Feel free to ask any questions as they come up, or if I miss something, let me know. So if you've got your book, I'm going to start, I'm going to go to page 3 first. It's just about the RMA program. So this program started in 1981. It is for municipalities only. It started back in the 80s. When it started, it was because a lot of the commercial carriers were pulling out of this business. You know, they didn't want to write municipal business in the state of Illinois. So municipalities got together, they went to the municipal league, and this program was formed as insurance coverage for cities and villages around the state. That's all we do. We specialize in municipalities. We don't get into counties or park districts or school districts. We're not doing anything else. It's strictly municipalities. Our board of directors is all mayors. So, you know, they all understand the role you play, you know, sitting here tonight. We're the only ones like that. You know, others are focused more on county programs. There's some, there's various pools that do different things. Public Risk Fund is strictly work comp across all public entities, where we are strictly municipalities, and we're the whole package program. If we go to page 5 here, we listed some of our surrounding members. We currently have 810 municipalities in our program, and we're in every county across the state. We have our smallest member is population 17. Unbelievable, I know. And our biggest population-wise is Tinley Park. That's the biggest in our program. Typically, it used to be the 40,000 population mark. They were self-insured. Over the last 4 or 5 years, a lot of the bigger cities have been coming to us because the self-insured program isn't working for them. They can't manage it. They can't run it properly. So they've come to us. So we've gotten a lot of bigger ones in recent years. And we've really grown a lot. But you can see in this area, we've got several around here, really all around the state, where there's several counties in the state where we have every municipality. You guys were actually with us from 1988 to 2018. So you were with us for 30 years. And then you went a different route, and now here we are trying to get you back. So we'll get into some coverages here real quick, and I'll go fast through these. It's basic coverages, you know, like you have now. It's property coverage. The differences that you'll see, usually deductibles. Our deductibles are very low, and our board of directors has really stuck to that to help with your budgeting purposes. Property deductible is $500. We're $25,000 on flood and earthquake. Where, you know, a lot of times you'll see 1,000, 5,000, even 10,000 on the property lines. Sometimes more than that in the bigger cities. We stick to 500, just so you don't get those unexpected bills every time you do have a claim. You know, you don't have to pay the higher amount. It's $500. Page 8, we'll go to the portable equipment. You know, this is all your equipment that runs around town. Your tractor, backhoe, any mowers, you know, all that stuff that, just the equipment that you use on a daily basis. Again, it's a $500 deductible on that. These deductibles are per occurrence. So if there's one large storm, if there's a hailstorm, a tornado or whatever, and it damages 10 vehicles, it damages 5 buildings, it's one deductible. Not per each item, it would be one for the whole occurrence. We also do an additional bill during the year. Anytime you add new equipment, if you trade a tractor, you buy a new car, whatever the case, we don't bill you for that, you know, the $50, $100, $200 or whatever during the year. We just add it onto the policy, and then we look at the end of the year how much you added total. during that year. Crime coverage is part of the package too. We include 100,000 on this. Again, it's a $500 deductible. You know, this is your employee dishonesty type stuff. You know, the basic theft of funds, you know, whether it's concession stand money or whatever it is, swimming pool, a lot of that happens. We do include the bonds as well. Our bonds, we separate from our public officials liability. So we include $50,000 for the bonds that you're required to have, and that's the positions listed here: the mayor, the clerk, administrator, manager, treasurer, finance officer. We include $50,000 for all those. You can add positions. We can increase those amounts. A lot of times if somebody's getting a grant that requires 300 or 400 or 500,000 or whatever, we can increase those amounts to satisfy that grant. Liability coverages, the general liability, within this, we include the police liability, fire, employment practices, the employee benefits. A lot of the liability lines are within our general liability line of coverage. Our limits there, $8 million each occurrence with a 16 million general aggregate. And we're zero deductible on all of those. Same on the public officials liability. You know, this is what covers you guys, you know, when you get sued for what somebody thinks might be a bad decision or whatever. Zero deductible on those. Again, it's the same 8 million, 16 million aggregate. Cyber coverage, we automatically include 250,000 for the cyber coverage. We can get higher amounts. It's a 5,000 deductible. And I know Chris did check on the amount for these. 500,000 would be an extra $351. To go to $1 million would be an extra $527. So it's relatively cheap, surprisingly. Cyber coverage has kind of been all over the board. You know, sometimes it's hard to get and it costs more because there used to not be claims when it first came out. So. The auto coverage, you know, this is all your vehicles, you know, everything you drive around, your snow plows, whatever. It's $500 on your comprehensive collision type coverage for the vehicles, and we're zero on the liability. So if you're in an accident and you know you hit somebody else's car, somebody's mailbox or whatever, there's no deductible on that. The work comp is work comp. You know, it's statutory. We pay what the law says. You know, when an employee is injured, we pay, and according to the benefits that are spelled out in the work comp statute. We will fight the ones that are suspicious. You know, if you don't feel good about something, then that's what we want to know, and we'll take it from there and see how it goes. Unfortunately, though, in Illinois, we rarely win those. I mean, that's how Illinois goes. When we get to the commission or an arbitrator or whatever, you rarely win them. Occasionally we do, but it's the odds are against the employer, unfortunately. A big difference with us on the work comp is we don't come in and do a payroll audit. So we're not going to come in and go through your timesheets, job description, all that, and then reshuffle people. We just want to know your final payroll at the end of the year. If you underestimated, so your actual payroll comes in higher than what you gave to us for the quote, we're not going to bill you for that difference. We may be the only company I know of that doesn't do that. All other companies will come back and bill you for that difference because your payroll was higher than you expected it to be. And we don't do that. We'll go to page 20. This is kind of some of the loss control services. We have loss control people around the state who do a lot of trainings. Right now, they're very busy in all of the OSHA required trainings that you're required to have annually. That keeps them busy right now. OSHA has hired a lot of new people, and they're making visits. Our loss control guys have met with the OSHA, the top guys within OSHA, Illinois OSHA, several times, and they basically said if you haven't seen them, you will. You know, they will be coming to inspect you at some point. So our guys are doing all this training. That's one of the things they come and ask for. They want training records to make sure the employees are trained properly. So our guys are out doing this. They do them on site. We're doing regional type trainings where we invite all of our area members, within so many miles, to come and do these trainings. There's also a pretty extensive list of online trainings. OSHA really has asked us to focus on the high hazard ones, the flagger training, the confined space, the trenching, shoring type risks. The others we've shifted kind of online that you can get. So these are the bloodborne pathogens, ergonomics, some of the simpler stuff that can be done online. There's a pretty extensive list of those topics. Contract review, special event reviews. Our guys do a lot of that. Before as you're looking at contracts, you can send those to us. We'll review those, not from a legal perspective, because we always want you to go through your attorney first. But we look at it from an insurance perspective. So we want to see that to make sure that before you sign that, we do provide the coverage that this says you do, that you're saying you're agreeing to. So we do an awful lot of that, special event reviews. If you have an event coming up, whether it's a big parade or some kind of festival, our guys can come out and kind of inspect the premises just to make sure everything's okay before that event happens, to try to prevent, the injuries, the falls and stuff. Volunteer coverage. That's an optional coverage with us. Technically, volunteers aren't covered under work comp, but we do have a separate accident policy that we could get. It's a $500 minimum, and that covers, it's based on the number of volunteers, but I mean, it's $3 or $4 per volunteer. So that usually that $500 covers most. And that serves as an accident policy. It's going to cover their injuries, hospital bills, anything like that, should they get injured, if you use a lot of volunteers. And then the Gather Guard, that's a program we have access to through the National League of Cities. So this is for when you rent facilities to third parties, groups, whatever. If they don't have coverage, generally your Boy Scouts and Little Leagues and stuff, they have an insurance policy. They can name you additional insured. This Gather Guard, it's an online program. Poplar Grove, Village Poplar Grove would have a code that we would send out, and you basically hand this to the people who are renting your facilities. They can go to the website, they enter in the code. If they purchase it through the website, you automatically get the certificate. You're automatically additional insured on it, and that gives them liability coverage. It gives some property damage coverage if they damage your facilities. The pricing is based on kind of what type of event, the number of people you're expecting. If there's alcohol, it goes up considerably. But it's an option, for people that can't, if it's a family reunion or whatever, they don't have a commercial policy that they can add you on to. So this is an option. It's pretty good, those that use it. I wish more of our members used it. But it's a good option for those people who rent your facilities.
What do you say that was called?
It's called Gather Guard.
Gather Guard.
Yeah, it's through the National League of Cities, the municipal league belongs to this National League of Cities. So every state has a municipal league, and they join this National League of Cities, and that's how we get access to that. Page 24 is kind of a general overview.
That's the one that's in here.
So we quoted everything based on the information we were provided, all your vehicles, all of that stuff. So we're quoting basically all the same stuff. So this kind of runs through a quick comparison that you can see. You can see the deductibles are different, like I mentioned earlier. Ours are always lower. Our board is committed to keeping those low, and that's how we've kept it. Values, there may be some fluctuations in values a little bit. Sometimes we may shift. Other carriers may list something as portable equipment that we call property, or vice versa. So we'll shift some of those things around. Vehicles, you'll see the difference on the vehicles. Some companies rate on cost new when you purchase those vehicles. Well, we rate based on actual cash value. So we depreciate those vehicles. Payroll, we're looking at the same payroll figures. So just a quick reference to kind of That's not all inclusive, that's kind of the highlights, some differences. And at the end, we got the pricing. And I think Chris provided you with those invoices too, because we prorate. So we're on a calendar year basis. So the invoice you would have, if you don't have them, I have copies. But the invoice we do would actually be a 13-month invoice because your current one's December 1st. So we would have a 1 month from December 1 to January 1. And then we would be the whole year of 2026 if you come to us. So, any questions?
I would have 3.
Yeah.
So if I had an issue or a problem or question, and I pick up the phone, am I going to get an agent? Or is everything handled online?
No, you could call, definitely. You call and get somebody.
And
Most of our staff is in the Danville office, the adjusters. A lot of the adjusters are kind of spread out, but you would have all of their direct lines. You could call me, you could call Chris Cordy, you could call the IML office directly in Springfield. There's lots of options where you would get somebody, for sure.
and under this program, would surrounding insurable events have an impact on our rates? Say in the last 2 years, we've had 2 years, 3 years, we've had some pretty damaging storms that tore up just the city of Belvedere. So I imagine the more times you have claims, you run the greater risk of a premium increase. Do we have that here? If Village of Poplar Grove has 0 claims, but Caledonia has 1, Belvedere has 3, Harvard has 2, is that going to affect our rates?
It could potentially, just because that's the nature of insurance overall. That's what insurance is. Everybody pulls together. But the way we rate, we sit down every year at our renewal time, and we do this in August to prepare for our January 1 renewal. We look at everybody's individual exposures. So we look at how much your property values went up, how much your vehicles went up, payroll. We look at all that stuff, and then we look at your individual losses. And that's how we do most of the rating. Where the bigger picture would come in would be the reinsurance we buy. So as a pool, we buy reinsurance to back us up, to keep us solvent, basically, if there's huge catastrophic events. As that reinsurance goes up, that's part of our program that is passed on to all the members. That expense is. But for the most part, we really look individually at each member and what you have and the claims you've had.
Okay. When you say historically, you provided your services to the villages for about almost 3 decades.
Yes.
So my question there would be, and you may or may not know the answer, why did we change?
I wouldn't know that for sure. My guess is it's probably a pricing issue. You got a cheaper price, and I get that. We're not always the cheapest. Lately we have been. The last 4 or 5 years, we've been very competitive. We've been aggressive. We've grown a lot. We've gained a lot of members. We've added 150 municipalities in the last 4 years, probably, to our program. But usually it's never a service issue when our members leave us. It's usually price.
Thank you for your answer, sir. I yield to any of their trustees that have questions.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Matt, come on down.
My name is Matt Riplinger, and this is Zach Schwartzbach, associate of ours.
Matt, can you use the microphone, please, for us?
Sure,
Thank
is that
you.
better now?
A little bit.
Not that tall.
Me neither.
Well, we appreciate your business, and we've had you for 7 years. I guess if they had 30, can we get the rest of the 22, 23? I know it doesn't work that way, but I had to put a joke in there. Our program is very similar to theirs. We're a trust, the Illinois Counties Risk Management Trust. They insure 40 to 50% of the counties, cities in Illinois. They also have another division that gets involved with school districts as well, fire departments and things. At the time you changed, the concerns that I had heard were the financials were weak at IML, and it's an accessible company. You mentioned claims all around us. Well, what if they insured Springfield, Illinois, and wow, the tornado really wiped them out, and they had excessive losses? And a company that's accessible, or a policy that's accessible, can have extra charges for you because they lost money, a lot of money, in other areas. Ours is non-accessible. You never have any extra charge because of claims other places. Now, overall claims do count, like he said. Yeah, I can't say all the surrounding, everybody gets hit with hail. You may have a little bit of increase, but it's mostly based on your loss ratio. Luckily, you haven't had a lot of losses. I don't know, I had written down poor service from my notes years ago. I don't know what happened there. No agent to help you out, talk to. That brings us to our advantages, the agent. Our program is sold through the Independent Agent Association, an association of independent agents. If you don't like the job that we're doing for you, you could get another independent agent. Like, say, Owen is an example of an independent agent that could handle this account for you if he's registered with this company. The advantage to that is when you have a claim or a dispute with the insurance company, we can fight them a little bit harder than employees of that company. Now, obviously, I suggest to people, give me a call first, tell me what kind of claim you've had, and I can give you some advice on what you're going to need from the carrier. We do have all the loss control people that come out and try to prevent the claims, and claims people that are going to settle the claims. You can call all of those direct too, but we're in the middle there to help you out. And we've had a number of questions over the years. Very strong claim service. They have an open door legal system where they have an attorney group that they can refer you to when you have questions. A lot of HR questions come up lately in the last few years. Not necessarily here, but everybody. They have probably the broadest definition of who's an insured from any insurance company. Directors, volunteers, unpaid workers, leased, temporary, board members, council people, employees. I don't think I've missed a category of who might be doing something for you, whether it's directed traffic, over at the park for, an event or whatever. They're all covered should something happen. And the other thing that they do is they put together an appraisal every 3 to 5 years of all your properties. Very extensive appraisal. It costs about $4,000 for them to do it. They take a picture, they look at every single building, every single pump station, everything you have, put a value on it, and update that each year based on the replacement cost, what it's running. That's a huge benefit when it comes time to replace a building. Should this building burn down or something happen? A lot of times a policy will list, a couple $1 million, which was maybe a few years ago, and not get updated. So they really go to the nth degree to make sure that they have the proper values, because there are penalties within the policies for not having that right. When we look at the bottom line here, and you see our 113,000 versus their 100 or their 99, that's a little bit of a misconception because you need to add on that 4970, which is on page 2 of the summary page there. They're actually 104, 337. Now, the reason for that is our professional liability, which is employment practices liability, public officials liability, is a claims made policy. Meaning, when a claim is made or presented to us, that's the company that we cover the claim then. Compared with occurrence form, theirs is an occurrence form, like your auto. You could change auto carriers every single year, and you have a claim or something that happened in 2021, and you say, well, who'd I have then? Well, you had Allstate then. Okay, you got to go back to Allstate. They had it then, or now it's State Farm that you have. So when you leave a claims made program like ours, and you go to an occurrence form program, you have to buy tail coverage, because claims made only covers you for 30 to 60 days after the policy expires. So any claim you've had come up in the last years, clear back 8 years ago, wouldn't be covered if it was presented. Now, these are claims like sexual harassment, improper termination, other public official claims that you have. These have some long tails on them sometimes. It could be 2-3 years, and this thing erupts, and a claim comes up. So you want to make sure you have coverage for that. So it's more like about an 8% or $8,000 difference, really, in the two. I think it's well worth it to stay with the program you're on. You've had some claims. You've actually had 3 professional liability claims, so you have used that product. One was closed at no cost. The other 2 are going on right now. You don't want future ones to pop up without buying this coverage. So if you do vote to go with his program, buy that extra coverage, or you're going to be in a world of hurt if you have a claim pop up later. Without going through our whole proposal, it's pretty similar. Their property values are a little different than ours. We both have the same number of autos, the same number of inland marine contractors equipment coverages. We've got a couple little whistles and bells in there that they don't have, but it doesn't amount to a big, huge difference. We have this coverage that provides a $500,000 called violent event response coverage. Should you have somebody come in and, shoot up the council meeting or the city hall or whatever happened, they can come up and add medical expenses, counseling services, funeral expenses, a crisis team. It's an unusual coverage, but it's the newest one that has come about. And unfortunately, it's had to be used a few times. But the others are pretty similar. We're never going to have anybody match apples to apples with the same when you're dealing with 2 different companies. But we've made sure this is very comprehensive, that it covers what you have. You've never come up with a claim that wasn't covered, and you've never been turned down and totally disagree with us and come to me to say, hey, that darn company wasn't fair for us. They've been fair when you've had some auto claims, a couple workers' comp claims, 3 professional liability claims. One was dismissed at no cost, closed, and refused, basically. And they fight workers' comp claims. We do just like they do. We're all dealing with the state of Illinois and the Industrial Commission. They like to award money to injured employees in the state of Illinois. And it's tough. So we just try to stay on top of it. But any questions about anything that we have? We certainly would like to keep your business.
I would say I'd have to ask you the same three questions, but I think you know, led off with answering all three of those. Would we get an agent? You know, started off with yes, we would. Would would surrounding impact have a noticeable difference on possible future premiums? You explained how that may not. Um, you explained why you believe we may have changed 7 years ago, and that would have been possibly due to some instability somewhere. The only other thing that I would really have a question on is, I'm sure you sat down and looked at their product and you've looked at your product. Are they comparable?
Well, we didn't look completely. We only had about 4 pages of their
Okay.
proposal.
So I couldn't ask you if you felt that it was a reasonable comparison.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. They have a good product. There's nothing about the product that I
Okay.
would say or anything real unusual.
And is there anything in your product that would justify the $9,000 difference based on the 104,000 and the 113,000?
Well, the fact that you get an agent to fight for you, and the fact that we've serviced you for 8 years and we've had no problems whatsoever. So we've proven ourselves to do the job that we're hired to do.
I thank you for your answer, sir. I yield for any other trustees.
Anyone else? Any other questions?
Just when you're talking about apples to apples, why is your deductibles on the average higher?
Well, our company doesn't believe in the $500 deductible. We just don't, and that is a difference that we can't get around. I went back to the company. I said, "Do they have every available discount? Is there anything left here? You know, I think we're a little high." And their answer was no, not. It's because of the claims you've had. You've had a certain amount of claims. They need to maintain a loss ratio. It's always easier for the new company to come in and say, "Well, we didn't get those claims, you know, so we'll cut." You know, we've been lower when heck, it's a little easier to sell it if it's a little lower than a little higher, you know, honestly, when I've gotten new business, you know, but no, I don't have a good explanation other than we do not have that low a deductible.
Because of our history then, basically.
No, just generally speaking for everyone. Yeah. Generally speaking, the higher deductibles have helped to keep the premium level lower overall.
Any insurance.
Yeah, with any insurance, yeah, it's a basic rule.
All right, I was just curious of the difference between the two.
Any other questions?
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Does the board want to continue discussion? We
Um,
need to be able to come to consensus.
I would like, honestly, and it's just personal opinion, the 2 board members that were here prior are not here, and I'd like to have their input because they were here before these 2 companies switched, or before we switched companies.
Also, this matter is only on the agenda for discussion, not for an actual action. Okay, I just want to make sure
But I
everybody was
would like
clear
to
about
hear their
that.
opinions, just because they were here, both of them were here, when the prior company was here.
Yeah, both of them would have the answers
They would get a
to
little more
why
clarity
we changed.
on why we changed, and I would really like to have that background information.
Okay, then I will send out an email requesting that information be sent to all board members. But I do want to preface that we do need to make not an action tonight, but a decision so that at our next board meeting we can, as our policy expires on December 1st. So we will have to,
Pull the trigger next meeting.
correct.
Yeah.
But I will send out an email so that the board has opportunity to hear the responses and then send me their thoughts so that we can see if there's a consensus. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you both. Appreciate it. Moving on, motion to discuss and approve resolution 2025-26, a resolution creating a hiring policy for the village of Poplar Grove.
Move to discuss approved resolution 2025-26.
Motion by Dan,
Second.
second by Mark. Roxanne, would you lead off on this one?
Sure. So in your packet is a hiring policy that has been before the board for discussion now, I think a couple of times. In preparation of the meeting today, we did put together the policy and the resolution. In discussions though with the village clerk and the village president, there were a couple of points for your discussion this evening that the village president raised. One was a question regarding the minimum amount of time that the board may want to see positions posted. Whether that, would be for 30 days or 60 days or 90 days. So that's something that you'll want to give some thought to. Number two is how we're posting jobs. Right now, we've indicated that we're going to post jobs on our website, local bulletin boards, and all other reasonable outlets. The option, though, in terms of receipt of those, once those jobs are posted, how you're going to receive applications. If you, in subsection B, if we could scroll just a little bit on the screen, it indicates here, applicants may submit or must submit their applications in writing, either via the village's online portal, by email, or hand delivery, depending on the specific instructions provided in the job posting. The village is currently receiving applications via Indeed. I would not suggest that for your policy that you be specific as to a company, because you may want to use other providers in the future besides Indeed. Like maybe you'd want to use LinkedIn or some other, job sites. So, I would suggest keeping it general by using the term village's online portal, but that's up for your consideration. And then because of the way that positions can be posted on job sites like Indeed, sometimes the village does not receive a formal application form, just a resume or a cover letter. A lot of times on Indeed, you're applying for the position directly online, and so it is generating a resume, if you will. What I would suggest in those instances is, even if you're getting applicants from Indeed, that if you invite someone to come in for an interview, you have them complete the village's standard application form at that time, if they're selected to come in for an interview. So I wouldn't suggest any changes to that language. The only other revision that I was going to suggest from the hiring policy that has sort of been whittled down to what we have now is the length of time that we keep the records. And that's on the very last page, all the way down at the bottom. No, I'm sorry. Yep, right there. It says we're going to maintain application materials, interview notes, and background checks for 2 years from the date of hiring decision. I would just amend that to indicate that they'll be kept until a approval for destruction is obtained by the Illinois Local Records Commission. And that's it. Those are the only other changes I was going to recommend.
Any discussion?
What did we settle on for timeframes? They'd be out?
We did not, no. And so here's my concern about putting a specific time frame in the policy, okay? Sometimes, while you may, generally speaking, post a position for 30 days or 60 days, if it's an emergency, you may need a shorter time frame because you need to fill a position more quickly. So oftentimes I'll see this in Public Works. If we have a vacancy that we didn't expect, maybe we had a candidate out there that had worked part-time for us before, so we're not even going to post the position at all, which you're allowed to do. You may not want to post that position for 30 days. You may want to, put the job up for, even as short as a week, so that then you can fill that position quickly. So my only concern is, if you put it in a policy that you're going to post it, all positions for a specific period of time, you're creating an opportunity for someone to argue that you didn't follow your policy.
Where does
So
it say?
that would be my concern.
Where's the?
It's not in there. There's
Oh,
no
I
time
see.
period in there. It was just a question that was raised
Agreed.
regarding the policy in general.
I think we should leave it out. because like you said, I mean, every situation.
Is different. So that's why, like, currently it's just general. It says we're going to post them publicly. But I would suggest against having a very specific period of time simply because of operational need and the small number of staff that we have here.
Regarding B, if we can remove specific language, can we say something more to the effect of, the application can be submitted, well, really, we don't care how it's submitted, but it has to be
Right.
their own submission. But I agree with the unfortunate redundancy of having to fill out another application. That's a practice a lot of places use. So if it's coming from somewhere like Indeed and we don't have an actual application with our fields that are required, I think they should
Right.
fill out.
Yes. I mean, because there's going to be information that we want to have on our application form that Indeed may not ask for. But I wouldn't suggest you have everybody fill it out, just the ones that you're inviting to come in for interviews.
Agreed.
and have them
Okay.
Fill that out.
And then the only other concern I have is, sorry, I'm hijacking this conversation. C1, it looks like one person is reviewing all applications. I feel like to protect ourselves and remove any bias, we should have multiple people review applications.
Again, I agree with that.
I agree.
Yeah, I thought we had discussed potential hiring committees, didn't we?
That's in
that's
here.
B2.
Yes. Yep. So here would be my recommendation for number one. Instead of it reading the village president or designee, you could have it read the department head and or a member of the village board. And obviously the village president is a member of the village board. But truly department heads should be the one reviewing the job applications for positions within their department. So that then opens the door to, like, if it's a department head position, then obviously those resumes are going to be reviewed by the village president and members of the village board. But if it is a public works employee, then those resumes or applications are going to be reviewed by David, right? So it kind of keeps it so that it's either department heads and or members of the village board.
Do you see where I'm coming from, though? Like, what if David eliminates, 7 out of 10 applications, but some of those 7 were very qualified individuals, but no one else knows that because no one saw them?
Yeah, I mean, that is a possibility. What I would, advise the board is normally for public works employees, the board is not getting involved in those hiring decisions. It's usually the department head making a recommendation to the village board based on the department head's analysis. I have seen in the past, previous public works directors, and I'm sure that David has done this too, consult with the member of the board that is in charge of the committee that oversees public works and kind of having a conversation about, oh, we have this position open. These are some of the applicants that I have. But really, as it relates to department specific positions, it should be the department heads bringing their recommendations to the village board. That said, village board members are always able to view any records at Village Hall at any time. So those resumes are not kept from members of the village board ever. If a village board member wanted to come in and, speak to the public works director or speak to, the village clerk and say, I want to see all of the applicants for job XYZ, you would 100% be entitled to see those.
Why would we have to ask for them instead of them just automatically being forwarded to us?
Again, because typically for positions that serve specific departments, those hiring decisions and recommendations are made at the department head level, not at the village board level. And I'm speaking just generally as it relates to public works employees or maybe your office staff in the, your administrative assistants and things of that nature. I mean, obviously, those who are applying for your department head level positions, village treasurer, public works director, village administrator, if you had one, those are positions where the board is giving advice and consent. So in those circumstances, you would be reviewing all of the resumes and making decisions based off of the applicants that you had.
Do we need to delineate that then? Because I was thinking more in terms of we have a treasurer position open and we've had a lot of applications, but I haven't, I don't know if anybody's looked at any of those.
I haven't seen a single one.
You could certainly in your hiring policy differentiate between, you know, what I would call department head positions, right? As opposed to all the other positions in your organization.
Do you think we should? I mean, I'm not trying to make this difficult. I just want to make sure we have something established that prevents bias as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question I'd ask the board would be, do you want to have a hiring committee to hire an administrative assistant in the office? Do you want to have a hiring committee to hire a public works laborer that will be working in public works? Or do you want to save the hiring committee for the more senior level members of your staff?
Well, some of our higher level stuff is also by appointment as well, like treasurer. That is not, that's, that I could see committee, because it's not only hiring somebody, it's also an appointment as well. And then I was also thinking what you said, Dave, about just the general email of all this out. And my only concern would be any potential added cost in any FOIA situation. Because, then everybody, we got to go through their emails, somebody did this, and we got, clerk departments added hours, potential, attorney fees for that as well. I like the idea, but that would be my only concern is potential added costs. Somebody comes in, thought it was biased, and, FOIA request all this stuff. Now we just added a whole lot of headache for staff and potentially attorney and some added fees. When we do have the option, like she stated, to walk in here at any given time and sit down and look through them, which, confines them to here, but I think it would avoid any FOIA issues down the road.
Here's a counter thought to that exact thought process. What if somebody decides to FOIA everybody's email to see if it was biased?
Well, if they never left the building and they weren't emailed out, it would only be the ones that they received them. I mean, I get what you're saying, but I think just leaving them in-house. Like I said, I'm just worried about potential added, cost. That's it.
Roxanne, can you speak to the issue of how other municipalities handle the transfer of information when it regards to hiring potentials, please? Maybe that will help lighten this.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So Dan's concern is that resumes would be sent via email to board members for review, with that could potentially lead to FOIA issues.
Yeah, and your applicants are going to be subject to FOIA. You're a public body, so we'll be able to redact, private information, but there's, a plethora of case law and AG decisions on that. This is not a FOIA issue at all. I think you just need to decide what level of involvement you feel the board needs to have as it relates to your, what I'll call non-management employees and your management employees. To me, it doesn't make sense to have a hiring committee of 3 individuals for someone who's going to do public works duties, right? That is why you have a public works director. The same thing with, someone who may be taking water payments or answering the phones in your office, right? Typically, those positions are ones that either report to a village treasurer or the village clerk or the village president, right? I don't know that there's really a need for a hiring committee for those positions. I don't see it being done that way in other municipalities. The instance in which I see committees being formed and multiple people being involved in hiring decisions would be at your executive level staff, which for you here in Poplar Grove is very limited, right? It's going to be your village treasurer and your public works director, those two positions.
And with that, can you also specify, so in this hiring, because the way that I had envisioned this, right, is that the hiring committee would be formed. We would review applicants. We would pick out those to be interviewed and go through the interview process.
That's how we've always done it here.
Okay.
Again, for those executive level positions, that's how it has always been done. I'm not aware of a situation, even with the prior village presidents, with Don Sattler when the public works director position needed to be filled, or with Owen Costanza when the village treasurer position needed to be filled. We've never compiled all resumes and circulated them amongst all members of the board. It has been a board member or two sitting with the village president and reviewing and, you know, making decisions in terms of who is going to be invited in for interviews. That doesn't mean that members of the board are entitled to know who the applicants are and what their qualifications were, right? If you would like to do that, I think that that is, something that you are absolutely entitled to. Or if you wanted to participate in the hiring committee, you could obviously do that as well. That could be a board action. But it has not been my experience here that, for example, that we've held an executive session and brought all of the applicants, every single applicant, to the board in executive session to go through all the resumes. It just hasn't been done that way.
And I don't think it's efficient that way either.
It would be creepy.
I said that would be a lot. All I'm saying is that more than one person should review the applications, and if we want to limit that to the executive positions, that's fine with me.
Yeah, I think that the board having the information that it needs and that there is no exhibit of bias would be my concerns.
Would it be okay if I revise the hiring policy then to indicate that screening and interviews will be handled by department heads for positions that fall under department heads, and that for executive level or officer department head positions, that screening and interviews will be handled by the hiring committee, which would be the village president? And then, do you want, if you have more than 2 members of the board on there along with the village president, then you have to post it as a meeting and take minutes and do all of the things. So I would recommend that you limit it to the village president, and then it makes the most sense that it be the administration/finance chair, because that's the position that has historically also been involved in the interviews here.
That's what we discussed at
Okay.
the last meeting. Yep.
All right, I can make those changes.
And then finance is over public works, so that finance chair would do anything public works wise.
Along with that revision to the hiring policy, then, in terms of screening and interviews, are there any other changes that the board would like to see?
Any others?
No.
Okay,
Okay.
I'll make those changes and we'll have it ready for next week.
So in the hiring process in paragraph A, would it make sense to say that a minimum of at least 3 avenues of posting be required? So the way it's written now, it says all job postings shall be posted publicly, and it gives a list of options, but it doesn't quantify. So I think that there should be a minimum of 3 avenues that it should be posted at a minimum.
Do we have a consensus to do so?
Yeah.
I'll make
Sheila?
that change.
Thank you. Any other revisions before we close the matter? Okay, let's move on. Motion to just,
I'm sorry,
Yep.
could we just get a motion to lay the resolution over then?
sure.
Move to lay this over until the next meeting.
Motion by Dave, second by Sine. Can we do it all in favor now?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, item is laid over for the next meeting, which is November the 19th.
I'll have it ready.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Motion to discuss and approve Resolution 2025-27, a resolution of the Village of Poplar Grove, Illinois, authorizing the village to approve a revision to the Village Hall rental agreement and policy.
Move to discuss approve resolution 2025-27.
Motion by Dan,
Second.
second by Sine.
Just to give the board a heads up as you're looking at this, for some reason, the formatting of these documents is off in the scanned version that shows up in Municode. But just so you know, the version that the village will be using to process these applications and give out the facility information and things, it doesn't look like this. I'm not sure why when it gets uploaded to Municode, everything kind of gets shifted over, but it doesn't look like this in print form. Yes.
You want to go ahead and lead off?
Sure. Yeah. So, in the packet is your revisions that were requested to the rental hall policy, and to the policy guidelines and to the application. This also went through a follow-up, with both Carrie and, with the village president, just to clean up some of the language as it relates to how we are actually handling rentals here at the village, what we're requesting, insurance for and not, what we're collecting security deposits for and not. And so it's my understanding that these latest revisions capture all of the actual processes and procedures that we are implementing here, including who is exempt from rental fees, which would be obviously a village-sponsored event, nonprofit organization, or other local, state, and government agencies. Otherwise, the room rental rates are as discussed: 75 for residents, 150 for non-residents, and a proof of insurance. And additional insurance for bounce houses or inflatables is outlined, as was discussed at the previous meeting. So I believe that this is ready for approval.
I had a couple of things.
Oh, sorry.
I just had a couple of things. The first one in the fee exemptions, it says nonprofit Poplar Grove organizations. I just wanted to make sure that we were clear. So if an organization outside of Poplar Grove comes, are we then, just for clarification, we are then charging them the non-resident rate, or I just want clarification. So I had that issue.
That's up to the board.
Right?
Yeah.
I thought we talked about all nonprofits last time, and it
Yeah,
wasn't specific to Poplar Grove.
I didn't think jurisdiction mattered.
Yeah, if that was communicated to Dave, then it was missed on our end.
Okay. That's how I recalled it too. So when I read it, that's why it jumped
Okay.
out at me.
Yep, nope, I'll make that change.
The other one I had is in the insurance requirement. It's the second bullet item. It says all businesses and organizations, including those without non-for-profit status, must provide proof of liability insurance. I could have swore that we also had a discussion that even if a non-for-profit wanted the space, they still had to provide liability
we did.
insurance. So I think it's just
Just
the out
remove that.
needs to go. It's,
Okay, let me pull this up.
we're waiving the rental fee, but we're still having the liability insurance requirement.
Agreed.
Okay. The last one that I have, well, two little things. There's a spacing issue in the second bullet point of the rental policies, last line between shall and result. It looks like there's an extra space in there. And that's the last line where it says full refund of fees, those received after this time shall result. It looks like there's an extra. I don't know if that's true or not, but it looks like that's the case. But the last potential additions, and this came up as we were working on the Christmas decorations, where we have the statement. We believe, after working with Katie and the staff, we think that we should add the verbiage of push, well, I don't know about push pins because we're going to use them, so I don't do that one, but double-sided tape. It says no nails, staples, duct tape, or chemicals of any kind should be used, but I think we need to add double-sided because it's been left on walls and then you have to use Goo Gone to get it off.
Can we just be more generic and say anything that leaves a permanent,
Residue.
yeah, or damage? I mean, do we?
I
have to
just
be
didn't want
specific?
people to have the ability to be subjective to decide.
Okay, then, okay, is there anything else we might be missing then if we want to?
I think that's the only one. That's why we also called out the specific types of tape that could be used, because they don't leave the resin, but we missed double-sided tape and we've had some issues. So those were the only few things that I saw in this revision, sorry.
I'm
okay
gonna
with
need
that.
your notes.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
to make those changes.
Okay. So unfortunately, it'll have to return. Are there any other revisions?
Good.
Can we get a motion to lay it over to next meeting?
Motion to lay over
19th.
until November 19th, the ordinance 2025-29.
Second.
It's 27, 2025, 27. Is that right here?
Am I looking at the wrong thing?
Yeah, it's detail
It's
5.
resolution 2025-27.
Yep. I
Just for
was looking at the wrong
clarification.
thing. Yep,
So we
sorry.
have a motion by Sine,
Second.
second by Dave. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, it'll be laid over till November the 19th. All right. Motion to discuss ordinance 2025-29, an ordinance amending the Title II Business and License Regulations, Chapter 6 Raffles, Section 265 Issuance, and Section 266 Fees of the Code of Ordinances for the Village of Poplar Grove.
Move to discuss or approve ordinance 2025-29.
Motion by Dave,
Second.
second by Dan. Would you like to lead off?
I can, if you'd like me to. So this is a amendment to your ordinances as it relates to raffles. If we could scroll down. It outlines in the bold, the Class A calendar raffle will be one raffle option licensed annually for a period not to exceed 12 months commencing on the day after the license is approved. It's limited to no more than 52 raffle events. If you could scroll down, thank you. And then all of your other classes of licenses would then be eliminated. So you'd be left with just the Class A and the Class B. A Class B would be a one-time emergency raffle license, which would be allowed for nonprofit fundraising organizations or groups. Drawing has to occur on the same day. There isn't any change then to the rest of the language as it relates to what the raffle license will contain, but if we could scroll down. So a Class A license, your Class B license is issued for one raffle only. A Class A license is issued, when a Class A license is issued, it's authorizing a specified number of raffles to be conducted within that specified period, not to exceed 1 year. And then again, if we could continue scrolling. Your Class A or B license is $25. And then when an application for a raffle license is filed, the application fee is non-refundable. That's your existing language.
Are there any questions or discussion?
Yeah, in the B clarifies non-for-profit, so the A is not strictly for non-for-profit.
I think they're all non.
Yes, they're all. The way that
But it's not clarified in A, it's only clarified in B. The B license, I should say. I didn't see it in the A license.
I think it says it up. Yeah, you see it. I see what he's saying. Like,
It's not clarified. That would be that, and, you know, it'd be ambiguous that anybody could do it.
yeah, which we know that that's not the case.
And then I know when this came up, we did not realize that there was a state statute, right? That wasn't being followed correctly.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. The state statute clearly reads that only a non-for-profit can hold the raffle. So,
So you want the Class A amended to read
well, no,
nonprofit?
it's not clear. I mean, I wish it wasn't that way at all. You know, it's state law, so, but I think it, you know, the verbiage should be correct. I mean, language, because it If you got one that says it and one that doesn't. So that leaves that up to interpretation. If they're like, oh, well, Class A license
Well,
doesn't say anything about it.
The village can't supersede state statute,
Yeah.
just,
I'm
just
saying
so
there might
we're
be confusion
clear.
of somebody coming in to buy one, to buy the license. One, all I'm getting at is one says it and one doesn't. I just,
Right. I mean, you're right. It should be consistent where it's either in one or it's either in both or it's not in it at all, I guess.
I would prefer it to be just stated, I think, for clarity.
Okay.
Do we have consensus
So
for that?
can someone make a motion to amend the ordinance then?
I'd like to make a motion to amend the ordinance to include the same verbiage of permit B to permit A, not allowing or only allowing nonprofit organizations to conduct raffles.
So if I could maybe assist.
Yeah, you can jump on in.
So currently, Class B reads one-time emergency raffle license. A Class B raffle license allows a not-for-profit fundraising organization or group organized for the sole purpose of providing financial hardship assistance to an identified individual or group of individuals suffering severe financial hardship as a result of an injury, disability, to so on and so forth, to conduct one raffle event for that purpose. That's the language then that you also want carried over into a Class A 12-month raffle license? No. Okay.
I think that he's just looking for that, to state that,
The Illinois
yeah.
statute of nonprofits.
yeah. He just wants
You know, I
Class A to state that only a non-for-profit can
Yeah,
apply
it's
for a
the same
Class
language,
A.
only a non-for-profit.
you know.
Yeah, no, I get that, but if you want there to be the language to be applicable to both, I guess my recommendation would be that it read the same then. The other thing that I think you need to keep in mind is that there is a definitions section that isn't being amended that is not obviously available for you to see here. Let me pull that up because that might help the issue. Remember, when we're drafting ordinances, we only include the language that's being amended in the section that's being amended, because obviously it's expensive to do updates through Muni Code if you include all of the other subsections. But let me pull that up for you here, and maybe that'll help.
But it's clarified throughout its entirety though.
Okay, so in
statute.
chapter 6, section 2-6-1, which is not being proposed to be amended, you have an outline of like charitable organizations, educational organizations, fraternal organizations, labor organizations, nonprofits, what a nonprofit means, all of the different veterans organizations, religious organizations, they're all defined as entities that are able to apply for the classes of licenses that you have. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's already
And
in
so,
paragraph that-
you know, my suggestion would be, rather than, you know, not carrying the same language into subparagraph A as you have in subparagraph B, perhaps you just eliminate it for subparagraph B because you're already outlining in section 2-6-1. Katie, do you have the ability to pull that up for
As long as
them
it's
so that they can
outlined,
see
and
it?
It's not just one or the other. As long as it's outlined, I'm fine with that. And then I guess, and like I said, I know we can't mess with state.
What was it again? It's section 2-6-1.
While she's looking for that, my,
No, this is it. These are the definitions.
yeah, as long as it's clarified somewhere, that's fine.
See, you have a definition of raffle if you scroll down to the R's, where you have your statute here indicating that it's a form of a lottery conducted by an organization licensed under this chapter. And these are the types of organizations that you allow. You see what I'm saying?
Yep. Yeah, just.
So
I
to
didn't
me,
see that,
I
you
think
know.
it might make more sense
Take
to
out-
just eliminate the language in B
Yeah,
so that here's your Class A, here's your Class B, because these are the only organizations that are going to be allowed to apply for that type of license anyway. The reason why your Class B license was previously limited to those types of special entities, if you will, is because that's how the village board at the time that the ordinance was previously drafted back in 2010 decided that they wanted to limit that type of license at that time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but now it's state, so it's no ifs, ands, or buts.
Correct.
I believe that the state statute was the same even then.
So they were in violation all these years, or the village was then?
No, because they were limiting them to those organizations.
But they had not been.
Yeah, but they had not.
Well, what the ordinance may read and what they were doing in practice, right? Maybe two different things. I can only speak to the ordinance language.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and it is, the one for the fundraiser, I mean, that, you know, it's, like I said, it's state, can't disagree, you know, gotta follow that law, but I wish there were some loopholes. And I mean, if you want to fill out a piece of paper and speak to this, Michelle, I've seen them do lots of fundraisers for, you know, before we caught this. You know, families, parents have died from cancer. Both parents died, you know, in the same year from cancer. They raise a lot of money. And I've seen these situations plenty of times in this town. And I just wish there was a loophole where it wasn't strictly nonprofit. And like I said, I understand it's statute. We got to follow it. But yeah, these are good things that a lot of people have done for good people. Kind of heartbreaking.
Well, I mean, a lot of the organizations I know that Michelle works with, they can come and apply for the raffle, and that's why we're reducing the fees so that it's cost effective.
But
you know,
that's why I said let her speak to it.
The
Maybe she had some better clarity on it.
the other outside thing that I think there was a question before too was where those raffles can be held when there's gaming establishments, and that was something that Dave Kerlinkus was going to circle back to the board with.
Okay.
That I don't know that we've had any correspondence on.
Okay.
So, but right now, Mark began to amend, and do we need to withdraw the amendment at the moment, or?
Well, again, it's all completely up to the board. So the direction as I
Strike
understood
that
it,
B, that's fine. I know there's clarity to it.
yeah,
I just thought it was unclear having
Yeah.
different language in both of them.
the direction as I understood it was that the direction of the board was to have a Class A and a Class B raffle license, with the Class B essentially being what is currently your Class C. Okay, currently your Class C is the one-time emergency raffle license. So no other changes were made to the Class C language other than to now label it as Class B, because you were getting rid of the multiple raffles license.
Mhm.
And consolidating that really into Class A. So again, we could just strike the language allows for a not-for-profit fundraising organization or group organized for the sole purpose of providing financial hardship. All of that, you could take it out because your definition section makes clear the organizations that can apply for the raffle license itself.
Yeah. As long as they're both, yeah, as long as it's clear.
Okay, so then I'm just, because Mark had started, so I just want to make sure that for the record, we get what we need taken care of. So does Mark need to withdraw? If Mark, if you agree with what Dan is proposing, if not, that's fine. I want to make sure that we're clear for the record.
Okay. So do I need to withdraw?
Well, or can he just change what he wants the amendment to? Yeah, he kind of got cut off, but.
Microphones weren't working anyways.
So, Roxanne, can we just change what? Okay,
Yes.
can you just change what you're amending, Mark?
Sure. I'd like to make a motion to amend the language in section B to strike the non-needed verbiage. It's already
I understand.
covered into section 6-1 or whatever it is.
Okay, we have a motion to amend by Mark. Do we have a second? Second by Dan. Can we do an all, or does this have to be a roll call because it's an amendment?
It could be all those in favor.
Okay. Can we have all in favor, please?
I
Okay, any opposed? Okay, so the language amendment passes. Before we conclude, Michelle, would you like to come if you'll, so we can hear you for the record, please?
Hello, I'm Michelle Burke. My address, any of that
You
stuff?
don't need to do that.
Okay.
That's fine.
All right. I obviously manage Mortimer's Roadhouse in Poplar Grove, and we do have monthly meat raffles. It was something that we've done for many, many years. We've tried to do one specific organization. We have then decided we like to share the wealth. So every month through the winter months, we try to do meat raffles. It helps. Yes, it helps us. But it also is something that the community gets involved in. They love to do. We're raising money for different things. Now, throughout the season, they're not always all non-for-profit. That was my biggest concern. I wanted to make sure because I've always held the license so that we can do those raffles. And it's not just the meat raffles. It's also in the summertime we have bike runs and we have different chili cook-offs and different things like that where it might not necessarily be a non-for-profit who has a 501c. Let's put it that way. It's my understanding that a non-for-profit technically is a 501c. And in order to get the license, you have to have a 501c. Is that what I'm understanding?
I don't know that to be true. No.
Okay. That's what I was concerned with because
Okay.
if I hold it, then we can have multiple events, different times of the year. Again, the event that Dan was speaking of is we had 2 former employees, both passed away within the same year. So it was very dear to our hearts. They left behind a 10-year-old child. So we had a chili cook-off and we raised money for the grandmother to help with his finances and things. So again, it's not just non-for-profit. It's sometimes it's people that have hardship and whatever. And I guess I'm understanding what I also heard was there's 2 different. So A is more the non-for-profit and is B the
Nope.
emergency.
So it used to be that way. Okay. And that's the point that we were just talking about here at the board meeting, that the raffle licenses were being issued to perhaps to entities that they weren't supposed to, because maybe it wasn't entirely clear in the ordinance that a Class A raffle license couldn't just be issued to anyone. Okay. But under the laws of the state of Illinois, nonprofits are one type of organization that a raffle license can be issued to, but there are also a lot of other types of organizations. And that's what's in the definitions that you see there. Religious organizations, fraternal organizations, veterans organizations, charitable organizations, labor organizations. These are a list of organizations that under Illinois law can hold a raffle license. It's not just a nonprofit.
Okay.
Now, previously, in the way that the language was crafted in the code, the emergency licenses were limited to those nonprofits. That's just how the language was drafted. So what we're doing now is taking that out of that Class B one-time emergency license so that whether you apply for a Class A or a Class B, as long as you fit in the list of organizations that are listed with the Illinois Attorney General as a charitable organization of some kind, right? Then you would be able to be issued either a Class A or a Class B, whichever you applied for. Does that make sense?
So in that particular example, would helping out a local family,
No, not
Exactly.
unless it was sponsored
okay,
by a religious organization, a charitable organization, fraternal organizations, educational organizations, it would have to be like co-sponsored by an entity that is listed with the Illinois Attorney General's office and operates without profit.
And is there any research or loopholes that we can look into as far as, I mean, because this is the small community. It's the biggest reason that we moved here was to raise our child in a place where everybody looks out for each other. We take care of each other. I mean, like I said, a lot of times we did Bravehearts. Bravehearts is obviously a 501c, but when we
Yep.
have those certain, hardships with different people, that is something that we would like to do. A lot of our summertime events are for local people who are in need that aren't
Right.
necessarily falling under those categories.
Yeah, and that, again, this is a state issue, right? It's not a local issue. It's not a local Village of Poplar Grove issue. So it's not something that we can control. In order to be issued a raffle license in the state of Illinois or a municipal raffle license under the state of Illinois, it has to be a religious, charitable, labor, fraternal, educational organization, veterans organization that, again, it doesn't have to be a not-for-profit, but it has to fall under one of those categories, operating without profit.
So I guess I got a question. So, Christy, you probably know more about this than me. With Lions Club being considered a charity, right?
Yeah, we're a 501c4,
Yeah, it's
so
501.
we qualify under the statute.
So if they were to get the year license and they want to do a fundraiser for somebody, would I guess maybe it's a Roxanne question. Could the Lions Club sponsor it for them to do the fundraiser at the facility?
Yeah, that would be up to the Lions Club, but yes, that
I mean,
happens
yeah,
all the time.
that Anybody could get that license and, like you said, be the co-sponsor, I guess, the way you worded it.
Correct. They'd be
To-
the applicant
Mhm.
for the license.
Then they'd be covered for that event.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I guess it's gonna come down to sponsorship for
Yeah.
them. So I guess my other question would be, say like Bravehearts
Mhm.
got their yearly license and they do meat raffles to help them too.
Mhm.
Now, since Braveheart holds the year license, could they co-sponsor other meat raffles for other non-for-profits?
Yeah, because they can have up to 52 events based on that.
So they could-
Or
so they
up
could-
to
if they wanted to
52.
give the money away to somebody else, another non-for-profit.
Yeah,
because they
or
can't
another
have a
veterans
sponsor.
organization or what have you.
Sure.
Yeah.
So basically, you just gotta get the sponsorship, the way I'm understanding it. Which, I mean, that's the loophole. I mean, we were talking
Yeah,
about-
you know, it does seem like it's super complex, but I do know of an HOA who, one of their committees structures themselves as a not-for-profit so that they could generate donations, revenue, so on and so forth to help out the association.
That was my
And,
next thing.
and it's
Look into
incredibly,
what it takes to be a 501c.
yeah, you know, you'd be really surprised at how simple it might be to actually create a not-for-profit organization. So I would suggest maybe you look into that a little bit because you might be able to create your own
Right.
small private not-for-profit,
Yeah.
and then you can sponsor and co-sponsor
Right.
all of the events and not have an issue with it.
Right. Okay. Well,
Thank you. Thank you.
So if I could just go back to subparagraph B, I want to make sure everyone on the board is clear, the revision that's being made. So I have the document pulled up here in front of me. So it would read Class B, which was your former Class C, one-time emergency raffle license. A Class B raffle license, and I've added, shall permit the conduct of. After that, I've stricken everything regarding nonprofit fundraising organizations or groups organized for the sole purpose of financial hardship. I struck all of that out and I took it all the way down to one raffle event. So it would read a Class B raffle license shall permit the conduct of one raffle event, period. All drawings must occur on the same day and at the same location and within the same confines of the same raffle event, period. Then your Class D is completely stricken. Your Class E is completely stricken. So again, you would have a Class A license, which would be issued for however many events they decide to have, or up to 52, or a Class B, which would be valid for one raffle only. Both of those carry a fee of $25. Make sense?
Sold America.
Okay.
So Mark amended it. Can we vote on it as amended?
You can, I fixed it, so
Okay.
you could vote on it as amended.
Okay,
If
so,
those
To vote as
amendments are
amended.
consistent
amended.
with
Yep.
what you're looking for.
okay. So-
And I'm sorry, one more thing.
Mhm.
To Dan's point, if the village believes that we still need to have some more clarity about who can actually apply for these raffle licenses, then what I would suggest, if we could scroll up to, I'm sorry, can we go back to the chapter 6 tab? Thank you. And if we could scroll down. So the license required section, which is not language that we're amending today, okay? We can make clear in section 2-6-2 that the list of organizations that are defined in our definitions are the entities that are lawfully permitted to apply for a raffle license in the village of Poplar Grove. Because to Trustee Cheek's point, I think that there's been an issue in the past in terms of clarity and who can apply for what. That would be the section where I think that we should, amend that.
So get rid of it shall be unlawful to state it's lawful for these groups.
No, I would still read that it's unlawful because you want to create a violation section if someone violates it. But I would include, maybe make that subparagraph B, and instead for subparagraph A, list out the entities that are permitted to conduct raffles in your community. Make sense?
Yep.
Which would be fraternal organizations, churches. And we can amend that and bring that back on a different day.
So for us to amend or pass this as amended,
Mm-hmm.
I just need a motion to,
Just need a motion to
say again.
just a motion to
Oh,
approve.
I need food. Motion to approve as amended. There we go.
Yes.
My brain. All right.
There
Do we
we
have a
go.
motion to approve as amended?
Yes.
By Mark,
Second.
second by Dan. Can we have a roll call, please?
Sine Hubbard,
Yes.
David Allgood,
Yes.
Mark Vance,
Yes.
and Dan Cheek.
Yes.
Ordinance 2025-29 is approved as amended. Motion to discuss ordinance 2025-30, an ordinance authorizing the levy and collection of taxes for the general corporate liability insurance, social security, and audit purposes for the fiscal year coming May 1st, 2025, and ending on April 30th, 2026 for the village of Poplar Grove, Boone County, Illinois.
Move to discuss approve ordinance 2025-30.
Motion by Dan,
Second.
second by Mark. Are there any questions with this? So just, I'll take off. So what you see in the packet is two parts. There is the actual levied amounts. What we get that calculation from our PTEL calculation, which is also provided in your packet. It was prepared by Sickage for us. But basically, this is the maximum that we can levy for. And then that number is taken and dispersed throughout our various funds that we call out. So, are there any questions? Okay. Roll call.
Dan Cheek,
Yes.
Sine Hubbard, Mark Vance,
Yes.
Dave Allgood.
Yes.
Ordinance 2025-30 passes. Okay. Motion to discuss BNS payments. Motion by Sine,
Second.
second by Dave. All right, I will lead off on this one as well. This is the memo. So as you all know, we are working with BSNA to do some other upgrades and integrations to make things more efficient. One of the potential ways that we can do that is to move to BNS payments. This is different than the current processor that we are using, Point and Pay. By doing so, it allows for an enormous amount of greater efficiency. Everything happens in real time. There's easier bank reconciliation processes. It's better customer service and interface for residents, as we have received complaints as to Point and Pay's interface. We've also had issues with Point and Pay where, even though the internal problem was ours to begin with, Point and Pay was unable to get our payments resubmitted. So I've also labeled here what the potential contract rates were with Point and Pay when they ended, as well as what the potential contract terms would be with BSNA. I also want to clarify that there are two parts. We're looking at the online portion, which is the interface for residents processing their own payments online, versus what we also do in-house. So we would need a way to process those payments for people who come to the window and choose to pay by credit card. That is where the terminals come in. That's what we would need to be able to process those. And those are $350 a piece. That is the only upfront expense that we would have if we so chose to move with this. What this also provides us is more capability to take more credit card type payments other than just for water and sewer billing. So
Do we know anybody that's using this?
there's a lot of BS&A clients that have moved to this because it provides a greater level of efficiencies. But if you want specifics, I'd be more than happy to create a list so that you could call for references if that's what you'd so
No,
choose.
I'm just kind of curious to see, what kind of feedback that people have regarding them.
In terms of payments, I have not had any people tell me that there's an issue with their service with BS&A payments thus far that I have talked to. I can imagine there's probably some, but BS&A right now, we have a direct agent for it whenever there's a problem. We also have, we pay for the service and support contract. So when we submit a ticket, somebody gets back to us right away. It's usually within a couple of hours. It's very rare that that doesn't happen. So we've had very good success with BS&A right now.
What? Oh, go ahead.
Is there a surcharge that we'd pass on to the customer that's using
Yeah,
the credit
it's
card?
the 2.75%, which matches what we currently do, and if it's an e-check, it's $1.50. So that matches exactly what Point and Pay is right now.
So I was just gonna ask if it was going up or not.
No, I made sure that they understood that I wouldn't entertain that.
The credit card information is being hosted with them on a secure cloud or server, correct?
Correct.
I'm seeing automatic card updates. Don't really understand what that bullet point is saying, because it's saying we'll maintain up-to-date credit and debit card information when residents' cards expire or are replaced, but they have to actually go in and update their cards.
The way
The
that I understood on the demo,
card owner.
right? So let's say, no, they actually have the capability to know when like a renewal date or a card is expired. They can update that without having the customer go in individually and update that information.
How do they know what the updated expiry date
She
is?
didn't really, she didn't tell us, but she told us that is one of the features that people enjoy. So you don't have to forget or it'll time out. So I could come back with some more information with that specific question.
I mean, if this technology is pretty common, I just want to make sure we're not hosting anything here,
Nope,
saving any cards, and they are
Nope.
PCI 1, so.
nope.
okay.
And moving to cloud, this is a cloud platform, just like what we're our other integration. And we're doing that because they maintain all of that other security that removes the responsibility from us too. So
Because I think our current one actually, on the auto pays off of account and routing, isn't it? It's not even off a card, I believe.
And it's card too.
Is it?
But if your card expires, you have to
Right.
physically
Yeah,
go
go in
in
and,
and
yeah.
change it.
I
when-
think I
when
got
you
mine
get
set
off.
up though for account and routing number.
Yeah.
That's what I'm sure you can do the same with these guys.
so myself, Katie, and Renee sat in on the demo, and the interface that our residents would have would be significantly improved. It's a lot easier to use, and we get a lot of complaints for Point and Pay, but then the behind the scenes feature for us, there's a lot more capability that we can do. So, for example, when we are adding the community development side of it, we could have it where people can go online and for various types of other transactions that we don't do right now, they can pay by credit card online. So if we had something where, whether it's a code violation, whether it's a transactional permit, whatever, they can pay that way if they so choose.
Well, even
Right now, we don't have that option for them on an online interface.
going back to like the hall rental deposits.
That could be done.
I mean, yeah, and then put the hold on the card for the deposit. But then Carrie was saying something, you guys taking physical checks for deposits?
Yeah, we
Against
take
holding
physical.
those?
Yeah.
And I would see that being out, a lot like the hotel, they just put that hold on your card, when you go in. Is that something that's feasible where they could put the deposit? the
I'm
hold on
not,
that
I'm not
card?
sure about the whole feature. I'd have to ask them specifically, but it does allow residents more options for more types of fees than we currently have right now. Right, and ways to pay than we have currently. Any other questions? Is there a consensus to move forward with this? If so, I'll have Roxanne review contracts and bring it back. Or is there another action the board would like?
Yeah, I didn't like the old one either.
Okay, so it sounds like we have a consensus to move forward then? Okay, great. Motion to discuss approve the hiring of Trenton Davis to a full-time public works employee.
Motion to discuss and approve the hiring of Trenton Davis to full-time public works employee.
Motion by Sine,
Second.
second by Dan. David, would you lead off, please? Can you grab the mic? Sorry. Gotta get up, move your legs. Yeah, right.
So as you guys know, we currently have a seasonal staff member who has filled part of our summer and fall seasonal position, and also filled the winter seasonal position last year. Right now, we have a need for another full-time employee, strictly based on workload. The objective with this is to move a known entity in Trenton into that full-time position, and then remove the winter and additional seasonal position from our current workload. Trenton has proven himself to be a good employee. He fits in well with staff. He has no issues with any given task that we've thrown at him so far. He has fit in very well with what we do around here. You guys got the memo. As Christy and I crunched some numbers in this current budget cycle, what we would be doing is taking on an additional $11,000 in responsibilities with pay, mainly due to a slight increase in his current wage by going into a CBA position. And then he would be also offered benefits. One thing I will note is going forward, that would obviously be adjusted in the coming budget cycles to account for any increases and things of that nature. Does anyone have any direct questions for me that I can kind of continue on with?
Were you able to get a more completed list of the actual impacts that I'd requested via email?
So I looked, David, at the workman comp, and just as both of our insurance agents specified, it's based on payroll amounts. So there will be an impact. I don't know what the percentages are of those for the additional employee, because that's how workman's comp is based, is on total payroll. So now,
Right, and I understand this. When I looked at the number and it said $11,000, all right, so this looks like, I'm going to be honest, kind of a generic P&L. And when you start looking at $11,000 shortfall, it's based on 5 months, so it would actually be realized at $26,400 a year for full year for the shortfall. So that's what they're going to have to make up for in the next budget. But that's just based on the $11,000. this doesn't take into account any other of the economic portions of the CBA. So it doesn't take
far
into
as what?
overtime, it doesn't take into account for any of that.
It does
So-
take into, I'll go over the list. So, right. So what we did is we looked at what we put in our current budget for seasonal mowing, seasonal summer, fall, and seasonal winter. What we have currently spent to date. Okay. And so that provided us money that we have not yet spent. Then we looked at his full-time status, and we looked at what the rate currently is for the beginning of November, such that this would pass into the time that that rate would change. Then we calculated the remaining portion at that new rate for the remaining months of the budget cycle. We also, and then we looked at the on-call, and he would come up on call 4 times before the budget cycle was over. We looked at the clothing allowance and the cell phone credit. We added the cost of insurance for all portions, the IRMF contribution, and that is how we came to that figure that is on the page. So
When it comes to the overtime amount, I don't want to throw a number at that. There's years where our budgeted overtime is significantly less than what the actuals are, and there's years that it's significantly lower than what we budgeted. It depends on too many variables to give you a solid number on exactly what that would be. I don't want to tell you $1,000 extra dollars, and then we're plowing on overtime 6 days a week. There's just not a good measure to give you an accurate number for an overtime cost. And we take the historical data to create the budget, but that's for the entirety of staff. And again, there's been years where, say we budgeted 10,000, we've had 14,000. There's been years where we budgeted 10,000 and there's 2,000. It just depends on what's going on with the weather, water main breaks, call outs, things of that nature.
How many full-time positions did we budget for this year?
We have 4 budgeted.
4 budgeted. So this is creating a new full-time position?
This would create a new full-time position and remove 2 seasonal positions.
All right. So I remember at the last meeting, I heard Trustee Vance say that we should not be increasing our staff. And I also heard Sine Hubbard say that when we start creating new positions that we should post these. We should post these positions.
The reason this position would not be posted is because we are filling it with an internal candidate,
We're filling it with a part-time employee.
seasonal employee.
Yes, and if I can interject, so I did ask David for those numbers that our village president just quoted, and I did see that. So we do have surplus of unused monies from seasonal 1 mowing, seasonal 2 summer and fall. We have 9,200, so it really is an addition of $11,000.
So
for
then
this
why,
year.
why was it represented as an $11,000 shortfall?
I'm sorry.
I thought that this,
No,
I thought that this thing that he sent out here represented an $11,000 shortfall.
yes.
It is
Yes.
going to encumber us
Yes.
$11,000.
Yep.
Yes, but
It's
and
replaced.
I am against adding positions. However, we were taking away 2 temp positions to create this position. So in the long haul, we'll be better off if we can
Well-
meet the demands of public works.
Right. But today, if we had a snow event with a 4 full-time, 2 part-time, we could have 6 people
No,
busy.
we do not have.
If we converted the 2 part-time to 1 full-time, now we have 5.
We do not have 2 part-time winter seasonal positions.
But I thought
No,
that
we
this
have-
was 2 full, I thought this was 2 part-time positions.
There is a summer seasonal position, seasonal, so it is not part-time. There is a winter seasonal position that is not part-time. And then there is a part-time mowing position in the summer. We would be removing the summer seasonal position, and we would be removing the winter seasonal position.
And let me clarify further. So when we budgeted in this budget cycle, we actually had talked about adding a second person in the summer months because the mowing season it requires so much additional time for guys to be out there. It just so happens that the individual that filled that role is also the same individual that in the past has filled the one seasonal winter position. So it is only the addition of one person. You're not actually having two people that would be potentially out there plowing. So just for, hopefully that clarifies a little better.
What did we use to budget for that? The winter position was a contract position for a
It's
snow
been
removal company.
multiple.
Yeah, and
Cleaning the cul-de-sacs up.
typically we were budgeting prior to going to the seasonal position and keeping it in-house. I want to say we were budgeting around 35,000 for that. But the last couple times that we went out to bid,
Yeah, you never got anything.
we either did not get bids, or the two bids that we had come in, one was 118 for the season and the other one was low 80s.
But prior to not receiving any, we were doing that. We were doing it prior. We had gotten bids and we had used that process prior.
Correct.
Cul-de-sac cleanup guy.
Correct. And then we, as we progressed, there was a year we did not receive bids for that position.
I remember.
And so I was out doing cul-de-sacs with staff, and then the following year we had two bids come in, but they were over 50% higher than what we had done in years before for that
And that's what created the
seasonal position.
winter seasonal.
And to clarify with Trustee Allgood, I do need to see a business case to add headcount. But if the business case makes dollars and cents, then I'm not against it.
But you were against replacing a building inspector with a building inspector in an existing position
That's a
with
whole
an
nother
existing,
case, Mr.
an
Allgood.
existing
That's a
position.
whole different, that's a whole different topic.
The other
It just is.
the other aspect to adding someone into the CBA is it allows me to utilize that person in different ways. Right now, the CBA kind of restricts what we can and cannot have part-time employees do. And this would alleviate that. And again, it's bringing in someone where I don't have to go through the onboarding process. I don't have to go through the interviewing process. I don't have to go through everything that comes with having to continually hire people season in and season out. And there may be a case where you get someone that wants to run a seasonal position year over year. But right now there's a lot of people looking for full-time work. And if those opportunities come, they're going to jump at it. And we would be back to looking for those positions each year.
Do you know what the average cost is for the village for the CDL training? I know you said he had it already.
I don't remember off the top of my head. We had to register as a training provider, which there was a fee associated with that. We did that 3 years ago, and actually our training, that permit is up as of December 31st this year, so we will have to renew that. I can look and see what the cost of that was.
But it's in-house training we're doing?
Yeah, I personally registered as a representative of the village to provide that training.
Gotcha.
So with the FMSCA, you have to go through, and it's a questionnaire and a form that you fill out, get the registration, and then you can provide that training to anyone that's coming in.
Like the hours required behind wheel is.
I want to say it's like 40 hours required behind the wheel. There's X amount of hours within like a book program.
If I could, we're really getting off topic on the agenda item. The agenda item is to discuss or approve the hiring of Trenton Davis. So just if we can kind of loop back to that, that would be great.
I will say with Trenton, we do not have to worry about the CDL issue. That is another bonus. He has the necessary items to come on with minimal additional training.
Well, is there any more discussion? Well, I mean, what we ultimately need is a consensus, to be able to, or a motion. I mean, it says discuss or approve, so or a motion to approve. But we would come back anyway with a letter like we did for the other one. So,
I guess I got one question. This would be for you, Christy. You see more of the budget day to day
Mhm.
than the rest of us do.
Mhm.
What is your opinion on the benefits to non-benefits cost wise for the end of the rest of the fiscal year?
well, I can tell you because I've actually, for the next meeting, we'll be providing, second quarter numbers. And I have reviewed those. And right now, we're running ahead of about $900,000 right now of our budget actuals. So in the positive. I know that for the amount of work that I see getting done is significant. We don't tie up. One of the things I noticed during the summer is that there are various projects that require multiple men at the same time, and then what happens is that nothing else gets done in the village. Whereas with this level of staff, I've watched significantly more projects become completed because they can go in multiple directions. Budget-wise, I have confidence that we can absorb this cost, this $11,000 this year, and I have all confidence that we'll be able to afford it in the future.
I would also like to point out that with the way the CBA is set up, if we make this hire now, it will cost less than if, say, we decide that we have to make this hire in a year from now because of the structure of the new hire wages.
The only thing I just could think of is we gotta find that 120 next year too. From the groceries.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't want to get off topic, but
Shake your head, I
but-
saw that.
but we'll be able to look at the numbers next week. But I know that there are mechanisms in which we can control. We carried over quite a bit this year into the capital improvement budget. So those are all things that those are priority costs that we have to weigh, right? So opportunity costs. But I ultimately think that this is a valuable person to have on hand for what we are planning on doing and the projects that we have coming. So,
I agree. The work is there. He's a proven existing employee. Let's make the move.
then we would need a motion to approve the hiring of Trenton Davis.
I'll motion to approve the hiring
I'll
of Trenton
second.
Davis to full-time.
Motion by Sine, second by Mark. We need a roll call, please.
Dan Cheek,
Yes.
Mark Vance,
Yes.
Sine Hubbard,
Yes.
Dave Allgood.
No.
Motion to approve hiring Trenton Davis full-time passes. Okay. Motion to discuss approved check disbursements for payments scheduled to be paid November 13th, 2025 in the amount of $105,314.94 in AP checks, $35,506.92 in EFTs, $23,282.08 in insurance, for a total of $164,103.94.
Move to approve check disbursement. And total of $164,103.94.
Motion
Second.
by Dan, second by Mark. Any questions?
Good month.
Okay. Well, it's a little bit because payroll's not in there, and that's because payroll is after the fact. Payroll's gonna run what is payroll ran at the end, which is about 21,407. So, if that's the case, can I have a roll call, please? If there's no questions.
Sine Hubbard, Dave Allgood,
Yes.
Mark Vance,
Yes.
Dan Cheek.
Yes.
Check disbursements in $164,103.94 passes. Motion to discuss ordinance 2024-06, an ordinance of the Village of Poplar Grove, Illinois, amending Title I, Chapter 6 of the Village of Poplar Grove Code of Ordinances regarding village officer and employee salaries.
Discuss ordinance 2024-06.
Motion by Mark,
Second.
second by Dan. Roxanne?
Yes, happy to cover this. So as the board is aware, there are some issues with this ordinance former ordinance 2024-06. And I outlined those in an email to the board on Thursday, October 30th. I'm assuming everyone has had an opportunity to read that. But basically what has happened is there was a version of an ordinance that was provided to Muni Code for codification that was different from the version of the ordinance that was prepared by the attorneys from Ansel Glink. And then what was codified had several mistakes in grammatical errors, not in amounts of salaries, just to be clear. And that document then now is going to require some cleanup, which we're going to need to get some direction from the board on. So at that meeting on June 19th, 2024, there was an ordinance that was proposed that was in the board packets that would make several changes to village president salary, village clerk salary, and village trustee salary. And at the time, the original ordinance was prepared by my office because we were the village attorneys at the time. And I believe that the directions were being given for the changes either by President Sattler or by Trustee Davies. And it was basically to move the trustees to a per meeting payment and then to reduce the salary of the village clerk as well as the village president. So those changes were proposed. That ordinance was drafted at the village board's direction. That's what was in the packets. At the village board meeting on the night of the 19th, that was the first village board meeting that Ansel Glink, Attorney Carrie Lynn Kraftfelter attended. The ordinance was before the board as it had been prepared by my office. At that meeting, Trustee Costanza moved to amend subparagraph B for village president salary to $10,000 from what it had been previously for the next election to take effect after the next election. There was some discussion about, and Jeff seconded that motion. There was some discussion about whether or not it should be 10,000, should it not be 10,000? Should we make it clear that the salary is $9,500 plus $500 for services the liquor commissioner for a total compensation of $10,000? And that seemed to be the consensus of the group. During the discussion, Carrie Lynn indicated that she was recommending that the payment time period be amended. Instead of reading after May 1st, that it read following the installation of village officers after May 1st. And she indicated that she was working on a revision, or she had brought a revision with her, and that would be then amended for purposes of the document that the board would be approving. She said on the record, following the installation of village officers after May 1st. The document that was prepared sort of follows that. It says, and we have it in front of you, following the installation of the village president after May 1st, following the installation of the village trustees after May 1st. And that is actually what got sent to Muni Code. Carrie Lynn told the board that the current village officer positions could possibly continue into May. And so you wanted to make clear that the new compensation would begin following the installation of the new officers. That was the intention. Austin Davies then moved to adopt all of Carrie Lynn's recommended changes and the salary of the village president to $10,000, which Owen had previously moved. Betsy seconded. Then there was a motion with regard to the village trustee salary, and that was to amend the ordinance to take it away from a per meeting pay, which was being advocated by some members of the board, to amend the trustee salary to $5,000 from the $5,500 that it had previously been, again, for the trustees that were serving at that time, but for the newly elected trustees to change it to $5,000. Owen seconded that. Here's where the problem came. No one had any discussion about what the payment time mechanism would be. whether that was in equal installments every 2 weeks, or payable monthly, or payable in the same way in which the current trustees are paid, which is every 6 months. That wasn't discussed at all. What I believe happened is after the meeting, when the ordinance was being finalized, the language was just copied from the village president language and from the village clerk language to the village trustee language. Again, that's just conjecture on my part. I'm assuming whomever at Ansel Glink was tasked with making the changes just made it so that all three of those positions were then being paid on the same schedule, not recognizing that we still had trustees under the former payment schedule that would be paid every 6 months. So again, that wasn't discussed. No one ever talked about it. There was a provision about lowering the pay for the village clerk. That was in the ordinance. That didn't even come up at all. That wasn't discussed at all. There doesn't need to be discussion. It was in the draft that was, before everyone, but just to point that out, there was no discussion about that. And then the fully amended ordinance was passed. The problem is what was prepared by Ansel Glink and what then Don also had in his version and sent to MuniCode, it matched in the sense of the payment amount of the 5,000, of the 10,000. That part's not at issue. It's the payment schedule of whether or not the trustees are paid in equal installments every 2 weeks, or as they're previously paid, which is every 6 months, once in the month of April and again in the month of October in the old language. So the village president, village clerk, village trustee salary cannot be changed during the term of the then sitting elected officials. It has to be changed within a certain number of days prior to the election. That part was done. So I think that, that's clear. There was a clear direction given on that. We don't have an issue there. What I do think needs to be cleaned up, though, is one, there's several grammatical errors in MuniCode now from the document. And two, there needs to be a decision on, do you want your village trustee pay to match all the way across the board with all of the trustees being paid every 6 months? Or do you want to leave the language as is for the new trustees and have them paid in equal installments every 2 weeks, knowing that for your other trustee positions that will be coming up for election, that you'll need to change that then at that time? So that's what we're seeking direction on today. That's the clarity that we'll need so that we can we'll clean up the grammatical errors. That's not a problem. But the village trustee payment time frame is what we need some direction on.
Trustee Cheek, do you remember what the motivation was to go from 6 months to every 2 weeks? Was it to?
There was
never
no
discussed.
discussion on that.
It was never discussed. I was under the assumption it was gonna stay every 6 months. That,
You-
I think is what she was saying, is that when Don sent it to MuniCode, that's how that came to be.
And that is how the lawyers drafted it, was every 2 weeks. The lawyers drafted it to read every 2 weeks. And I think the lawyers did that because it was maybe just like a cut and paste from the village president position.
The only reason I asked is because you said something pertaining to per meeting. And so I didn't
Yes.
want there to be any confusion on, if
Well-
you miss a meeting, you're not getting your check.
Yeah,
you
well,
know?
Don would proposed that you did get paid per participation.
Hmm.
It was, I think, $100
So
bucks
that's
a meeting is what he had
okay.
proposed. And then if you did a committee, like an extra $50 a meeting or something like that. And the amount of work that had to be put in last administration, the amount of emails you had to read would be mind blowing if you guys had to see this stuff. We're like, no way, this is too much work. And it was, it was, Katie, I'm sure you read plenty of emails. But Christy, you were on the board for a minute there too. So, yeah, I was like, no way, it's not worth it, $100 a meeting, just for the hours and hours and hours of reading we're doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was just a proposal he put up there. I'm pretty sure it was $100 a meeting, and then a little bit more for any like committee meeting or anything else like that. And we're like, and what it was is that it was 5,000 before, even before my first term. and they had moved it up to 55. So all that did was they get reverted back to what it originally was at 5.
So,
I guess my issue is trying to understand some of this language here. So in the email that I received, it said for uh, trustees installed after May 1st. So none of us were installed after May 1st. Every single one of us were installed before that.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying on that. The intention was clear that for the new term, that the pay would be $5,000 a year. That was the intention of the board. While we can argue back and forth over whether or not the language of the attorney should have been added following the installation after May 1st, in watching the meeting, the attorney was very clearly under the impression that no one would be installed prior to May 1st because the election results would not be certified until after May 1st. That was very clearly how the attorney thought that the matter was going to go in terms of the installation of the trustees. That said, I think if this were to be litigated, a judge would find, not that it's ever going to be litigated, but the intention was clear that for the upcoming election, that the pay for the trustees was going to be 5,000 and not 5,500. That was the intention.
And with the date of 25 on there, 2025 from here on out, it's legit. We did get sworn in early. I know we didn't expect it. I didn't expect it to be certified that quick. I mean, that to me, yeah, okay, but it's not a pressing issue as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, I mean, from here on out, the 2025 is going to cover that aspect of that.
I just need to understand how you want the frequency of the payments to be made
And that
because
way
that
I
doesn't
know.
affect the pay.
and then that way I know how to tell payroll to process.
Every 6 months, once in April and once in October.
I concur.
So there's a consensus
Yeah,
on
I
that?
mean,
Okay, I'll prepare the ordinance then.
anyway.
Very easy.
Okay. We ready to move on? All right. Go to the village. Board of Trustee meeting, November 19th, 12th annual Christmas tree lighting, November 22nd from 4 to 6 p.m. Village Hall will be closed for Thanksgiving holiday, November 27th to 28th. December meetings, the 10th and the 17th. Motion to go into executive session pursuant to 5 Illinois CS 120/2 C11 to discuss litigation with an action against affecting on or behalf of a particular public body has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when the public body finds that an action is probable or imminent, in which case the basis of the finding shall be recorded and entered into the minutes of the closed meeting. Need a motion?
Motion to go into executive session pursuant to at or 5 ILCS 120 2C11.
Motion by Mark,
Second.
second by Dan. Roll call.
Dan Cheek,
Yes.
Mark Vance,
Yes.
Sine Hubbard, Dave Allgood.
Yes.
You do not have to stay if you don't want.
Entering into executive session, 9:38 at Wednesday, November the 12th.
And it will not be this long. You're the best. I think I made all these. Okay, so I want to make sure that this gets done. But I missed this part. So was it this or no?
Yeah, just the double tape audit. Careful.
Mark Vance.
Yes.
Dan
I don't
Cheek.
know.
Here.
Dave Allgood. Sine Hubbard. Roxanne Sanowski. Christy Richardson.
Here. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Motion by Dan,
Second.
second by Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned at 9:48 p.m. Woo.